This is the Tristana jump that most players use. This is the Tristana jump that only pros use. Notice the difference? Many dashes take different amounts of time depending on how far they need to travel. You can get much faster dashes going through walls by clicking inside of the wall instead of on the other side. This is because the game calculates your travel time with the distance of where you click instead of where you actually end up. When you attempt to dash into a wall like this, the game will spit you out nearest the closest exit point. So someone like Zach can actually save time charging and release his jump earlier if you know about this. As long as your cursor is over halfway through the wall you want to travel through, you'll end up on the other side. Little pieces of info like this aren't commonly known about or used by low elo players, but pros try to get every advantage they can, and understanding how the game works is paramount to their success. Today, we're going to be going over incredibly rare knowledge on different mechanics in League of Legends that is absolutely sure to blow your mind. Let's get right into it. Tether abilities in League are weird. Here's me flashing out of range from a LeBlanc chain, and it's still connected. But when I flash here, it instantly breaks. This is because all tethers have a range check. Let me explain. League itself has a tick rate, where server actions are recorded and checked in 30 frames per second. Essentially, this means that you could have a robot click your mouse a million times in a second, but the game would never register more than 30 of those clicks. Because of this, you can play League at 30 frames per second or at 240, and the game still works exactly the same for both. But when it comes to hit detection and tethers in particular, the game doesn't check if the tether is still in range for every one of those 30 frames. Instead, it checks every quarter of a second, which technically doesn't exist in League because it's between frames, but they just round it up to 8 or 0.266 seconds. So when the LeBlanc chain lands right away, I can flash and it won't break until the next check for the tether happens in 8 frames. This is actually really abusable because if you're trying to escape from someone, if you flash as soon as the tether lands, there's actually an 8-frame window where they can flash after you and the tether won't break. You should try to wait a little before flashing so that it's closer to when the range check actually occurs, to make sure you never get screwed over by a tether that you were technically out of range for. Now, if you don't want to get screwed over by League's matchmaking giving you terrible teammates, there's an easy fix. Just head on over to skillcap.com where you'll unlock the secrets to carrying bad teammates. We have the highest number of courses on the entire internet that are specifically designed to accelerate your improvement as fast as possible. Between live commentaries where a challenger player teaches you how to escape the exact rank you're stuck in, and one-on-one coaching, we've got all the tools to supercharge your improvement. The best part, our service is completely risk-free to try as you're kept safe with rank up insurance. If you don't significantly improve while actively using skill caps, then you get your money back, no questions asked. So click the link in the description below to start improving fast and get the rank you've always wanted. All right, now back to the guide. If you've ever seen pros flashing in to get a kill and they happen to get the crit they need, you might just think it's luck, but crits actually aren't luck. League uses what's called a Markov chain to determine when you'll crit. In short, this just describes a sequence of events that are dependent on the previous outcome of events. For example, if you just crit, your chance to crit next goes down, and if you didn't, it goes up. This is to avoid insane sequences where someone just crits you 5 times in a row in lane, which was possible in older patches of the game. But now, especially at low levels of crit, like 20 or 40%, your crits are very predictable. At 40%, we expect to crit around once every 3 autos on average, which means if you go 2 autos without critting, your third is almost guaranteed to be a crit. In the same vein, don't expect to crit twice in a row, but if you do, you can be sure that you won't be critting afterwards. For any ADCs out there or Tryndamere mains, this is insanely important to know so that you can more accurately predict your damage output and not just blame your bad luck. Remember those fast dashes from earlier? There's actually a way to use them to increase your DPS as well. Dashes often lock you out of actions until they're completed, but many characters have dashes that immediately end their animations upon hitting the wall. So if you really need to get your spells out quickly, instead of getting stuck in animations waiting for your dash to end, you can instead dash into the wall to force it to end and immediately use your auto attacks or other spells. This is incredibly useful for junglers to speed up their clear and for those close fights where every second matters. League is often thought of as a 2-dimensional game, but unfortunately the 3rd dimension causes some really weird interactions. The map in League actually has what's known as low and high ground. If you've ever been hit by a skill shot that you swear was BS, this is probably why. Essentially, the river is what's known as low ground. Once you get out of the water and onto land, the map changes to high ground. Aiming skill shots when you're staying on the same type of terrain acts totally as normal. The problem comes when you want to go from one to the other. When a skill shot crosses this boundary from low to high ground, the actual hitbox will shift while the animation that plays won't. This causes some absolutely ludicrous looking abilities to hit when they probably shouldn't. However, if we know how it works, we can use it to our advantage, and we can dodge much easier knowing that what we're looking at on our screen isn't exactly accurate. If you're going from low to high or river to land, your hitbox will shift upwards. This means that if you actually want to hit someone, you need to aim slightly below them and let high ground take care of the rest. If you're going from high to low, it's the opposite. The hitbox will sink when crossing into low ground, so you need to aim above your target for it to land. When you're actually playing, you can intentionally wait for someone to cross the line from low to high ground before throwing your skill shot. And this makes it much harder for them to dodge since the hitbox and visual will be off sync. Speaking of off sync, there's another time when the Z-axis screws with your aim, and that's whenever champions are knocked up. Contrary to the name, knockups don't actually move the champion hitbox, just the model. So even though it may look like you're supposed to aim here, you actually need to aim at where they were before the knockup happened if you want to land your abilities. Who knows if this is how Riot intended the game to work, but it is what it is, as they say. Champion size is one of those things that a lot of people just don't think about, but all champions actually have to be conscious of their size for a couple of reasons. Some champion abilities will actually change in range based off of size. So throughout a game, as you get more items or interactions that change it, like Lulu ult, you can have extended reach on your abilities. Bami's Cinder in particular actually changes range based on your size as well. So something like Elixir of Iron, Heartsteel, or Stoneplate can give you a little bit of extra reach if you're just not quite there. Model size on every champion varies, and they all interact differently with their abilities. But if you're particularly small at just 55 units, you can actually do this neat trick where you weave between the mid lane towers by clicking very specific spots. If you're a champion that's even slightly bigger, this just won't work. Knowing what your model size is important if you ever want to attempt this or look for another way out. A lot of people already know that you can buffer Ezreal E and Tristana W to get out of CC, but understanding this interaction actually has some other important uses. There are some exceptions that can be cast instantly, but most abilities have a cast time, and for many, it's just a quarter second. So barely noticeable, but it does stop you from walking or doing other things. The whole reason that Ezreal and Tristana buffers work is because the ability is timed so that any CC that hits them is landed in the middle of the cast time. But this can actually be done for any ability with a cast time. For example, you can actually buffer many of your own CC or damaging abilities in this window and slightly optimize your own spell usage since you're technically casting during crowd control. Especially for those with long cast times, this can be a time save of up to a second, which is the longest that cast times can go. Note that there is a big difference between a channel like a Nunu ult and a cast time, and every champion has different interactions with this mechanic. For the ones you do play, it's a good idea to know how long each ability takes and whether or not you can buffer it in a meaningful way. If you've ever played a shield champ, you know how frustrating it can be when a ton of people are stacked on top of each other. With everyone moving around, it's not always possible to consistently hit the target that you want to hit. Target Champions Only doesn't even fix this problem, so what can you do? You can actually target your allies with their portraits by the minimap. This can not only save time, for example with Shen ulting across the map, but also fixes the issue of missing your target in a huge clump of champions like we just talked about. For the most part, dashes travel to the target, but there are a few that have what's called a fixed distance. These dashes always go the same distance regardless of where the dash is initiated from or what it's targeting. So you can use it to close gaps in a way that other people might not expect. Additionally, they can even sometimes go through walls. Bad Yasuos will just dash at max range to every target, which makes them predictable. But by mixing up targets and using your fixed distance dashes to weave in and out of minion waves or even through the jungle, your movement can be a lot more smooth. For more creativity with other targeted dashes, you can do a lot when you have a champion who also has displacement abilities as well. These dashes are usually very limiting, and the champs are balanced around the fact that you aren't very good at getting out of situations once you're in them. But by using displacement abilities in less than intuitive ways, you can give yourself a new target to jump to that lets you get out or even chase down targets in situations that would normally be impossible for you. And that's it for this guide. Hopefully you learned something and can take to the Rift and apply some of these concepts. Leave League is an infinitely complex game, and there really isn't an instruction manual to its mechanics, but there is an easy way to win more games and climb ranks fast. Subscribe to our website at skillcap.com. Our subscription service not only offers the highest number of courses available online, covering literally everything you could ever want to know about the game, but they're also specifically designed to accelerate your improvement as fast as possible. Click the link in the description below to unlock the most extensive and effective training resource you'll ever find. And that will do it for this one. We here at Skillcapped want to thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.